Welcome, Wrench Army members! And I am super excited for this stream. And we have probably the littlest Wrench Army member here. This is Leota, and of course her and her brother Amicus love hanging out in the shop, especially projects like this that involve little parts, little LEDs that they love to just kick off the table. And then I come back and I'm like, where's my stuff? And I'm thinking I'm burning through materials. No, later I find everything under the workbench or in little corners of the garage. So we'll see how long she hangs out. Typically her contract ends very early on in the stream. She'll usually do a very quick cameo because a moment longer, well, that's an extra $1 million. So yeah, she's a very expensive co-host to have. So she's hanging out. Looks like she wants to take down the webcam. So hopefully she won't do that. But like I was saying, I am super excited for this stream because we are venturing into like uncharted territory for me and maybe for some of you guys. And we have Frozen Mustache. He is saying good evening. I'm saying good evening back. And we're going to attempt to build a clay model of a dragon for our plasma ball lamp wizard fighting a dragon type of project. Yeah, this project is kind of spun out of control, but in the coolest way. You know, we were supposed to just stop at, oh wow, we got some plasma coming out of a bowl, but you know, in typical Rachel fashion, and when I have you guys kind of like, you know, pushing me along, it's very easy for that to turn into something like this. So in order to make our dragon clay model, we want to make some kind of armature for it first, and that's kind of just fancy for wire skeleton that then we're going to cover in foil to form its basic parts, and then we can cover it in clay later on. So you can see that I kind of started to play around. I couldn't resist. I couldn't wait for the stream, and I started to, you know, see if I can make my dragon. It looks kind of like a lizard. I'll give you guys a much closer view, and you can see that Leota has left. Her contract has expired, and she said if you want to use my likeness anymore, it's an extra $1 million. It's an extra rider. So we'll see if she comes back. But you can see here I have a tail going on, its legs, then we have its wings, and then its neck. And at some point, its head is going to be here. So this is obviously a little bit long. And the idea is, here is the front of our castle where the wizard can go in, or he can float himself in. And I started to bulk up the base of the castle already. And here we have this floating tower that we're gonna figure out how we're gonna get it to float. You know, I kind of came up with this stick idea that we can disguise as a rickety bridge, or maybe put some mounds of dirt as if it was like pulled up from the earth. And this is kind of a secondary tower. I think it's too tall. I think I need to cut it about here where our wizard will be fighting the dragon. But of course, some of you had mentioned, instead of using this like rickety bridge idea, to instead use some kind of acrylic rod so it's see-through. So by the time we add our decor, we might not even see it. So lo and behold, no sooner did you guys mention that than this shows up in the mail. So awesome thanks to Dave Beck, who's also Wrench Army member, sending us these very cool ultra tiny acrylic rods. So that began to give me the idea. Do we even need this tower? Or can we lose this entire thing and just pretend this is a wizard, you know, my acrylic blob here. Say we can balance this on an acrylic rod that'll go down, you know, to our terrain. You won't even really see it because we can like make it like the wizard has elevated himself and there's still some earth and ground next to his feet with roots coming out, which will disguise the rod, and we won't even need a tower like this. The original idea was to build something kind of like this. And so I love the wizard tower on the right, and that's pretty much what we're building here with, you know, a couple changes to make it our own and to accommodate our dragon. And then right to the left of that, it's got kind of an extra wizard hut. Now, of course, this wizard type hut is attached via a stone bridge, like a stone walkout. And I wanted ours to look more magical. Like, how is it floating there? You know, so either acrylic rods or some kind of, you know, rickety bridge situation like I created. or just float the wizard up and bag the whole tower idea. So we need to decide this before next week when I start claymationing the dragon. So whether we want the tower or just the wizard. So start putting it in the comments or in the chat. And if you can't make up your mind now, it's okay. We can always hop on Discord and, continue chatting it out there and post pictures and figure out what we want to do. But all in all, we can still start our dragon. So we have, of course, like I said, our front with our little hut. And I purposely left a blank side in the back to put our dragon, almost as if he's coming up the back side of the castle here. And you're going to see his tail wrap around here. Now, we don't want him to be too high because our plasma globe is going to be up here. So we don't want him kind of obstructing it or kind of taking away the spotlight. After all, the plasma globe is a spotlight. This is kind of the supporting cast here, this fight that's going on. And so the idea is he's crawling up the back here, and maybe his head will pop out here, or will kind of pop out, here, blowing fire at the wizard. And the wizard in turn is blowing or sending out his magical blue stream at this fire, and somewhere in the middle they collide, a la Dragon Ball Z type of thing. Or even, Star Wars, any type of two big magician, magical type of people come together and fight. So, so we'll figure out tower or no tower, or if we just want like a floating wizard, in its place. And I'll wrap the dragon around. So in starting to think like, how is this dragon even going to be shaped? I started looking at a couple examples. Like, these two guys, the guy on the left, the white ice dragon, you can see that he is perched on some ice or crystals, and he's got his head turned back. So I like the fact that he was perched, because we can take some elements of this body position and use it ourselves. Now you'll also note the difference between this dragon, the ice dragon on the left, and the Game of Thrones dragon on the right, is that the one on the left actually has arms. Now, not all dragons have arms. Sometimes their arms are their wings. And me personally, that's how I prefer it. I like arms as wings. Sometimes I think when they have 4 arms, they start looking more like a horse or a dog, but it really depends on the dragon. There's some really cool dragons with 4 arms. So I'm leaning towards the dragon on the right, only because its tail's already curling around as if going around our tower. And if you follow him up, his legs are perched. So we can kind of use this position to perch him on the back of our tower. And his neck is kind of turning around, blowing that, I guess his is ice or some kind of magic. I also really like the holes in the wings, because this dragon has seen some action. And we may or may not add a little dude up top riding the dragon. So I'm really liking this dragon on the right. And looking at a couple more dragons, now we have these two that I like their head position, because it looks like they're about to blow fire, at any moment. So this also starts giving us ideas for color scheme when we get into that part, which is, maybe a stream or two away. We got to do our clay first. And so there are a couple cool perched dragon positions as well. And then finally, how are we gonna attack this whole fire breathing situation? And I'm thinking of 2 ways of doing it. If you look at this resin statue, of course they use resin. I'm thinking that we can extend our armature rod all the way to the wizard, right? And the dragon is anchored to the castle, so he's not going anywhere. And so around this rod, we can wrap aluminum foil so it's reflective, and either use hot glue to create kind of a fire effect like this, or a combination of hot glue and expanded polyfill or cotton balls to create a smoky type effect, which we can then light up inside with LEDs as if like this fire is like totally churning. So those kind of elements are what we're gonna try and add. So getting back to kind of these dragons, let's try and create like a wire skeleton. And the reason for trying to create a wire skeleton is a couple different ones. Now, of course, I'm total beginner clay sculptor. This is the first time we're going to attempt this. And, I'm not going to lie, if it starts looking like a 5-year-old's project, we can move on to other things. We can make a foam dragon, or worst case scenario, which is not that bad of a scenario, we can go out and buy a dragon, right? And just kind of put them here and add some of our own effects, our own terrain, we can modify it somehow to make it our own and attach them on here. So there's a lot of like backup plans going on. But I figured, you know what? I love learning new things. So this would be a great opportunity to try and learn how to do this. So these little armatures here serve a decent, quite a few purposes. Number one, they make sure that your dragon is proportionate. So me, when I gave this a whirl, I was just looking at a dragon on a monitor and just kind of following along with my eyes. Now looking at it, I think the legs are too long. The wings are too small for this size dragon. So I'm going to try this again using a different technique. And once we like the layout of the dragon on the castle, we're going to start filling it with foil. Now, you don't have to go through all this rigmarole. If you have experience with clay modeling, I know some people, they just like go for it all in clay. But the other reason that the armature is good is that it helps you conserve clay. Now, clay is not the most expensive medium to work with, but it certainly ain't cheap either, So doing this not only conserves weight of your final product, but it also saves on your clay so you can extend it for more projects. So let me show you top side here, kind of what I had in mind. And let me move this thing into view here. And the original idea was to have a dragon, and here's his tail that's going to wrap around the castle, but let's pull that out for now. And I thought, one foot can be here and he's climbing, the other foot maybe on top of our hut, which is roofless for now. It'll have a roof, but it could even like crush a portion of the roof where he's put his foot. And here he is climbing up, and he won't have arms at this point. He's going to have wings as arms. So I thought it'd be very cool. How like they have the little hand on one side of the wing. He's like grabbing onto the castle and the wing is kind of folded behind him like this. So that way it doesn't really intrude with our plasma ball up here, so his wing is kind of out there, and then maybe his other wing is folded outwards, like so he doesn't lose his balance. It's kind of like flapping to kind of keep him on this castle. And of course his arched neck comes out here, and I left this purposely really long in case we do want to go with the wizard idea. The other reason I left this long is I started thinking about this, like the clay we're going to use needs to bake, right? So I'm certainly not going to attach him to this and then bake him on this PVC for a couple reasons. It would ruin our project. But number two, PVC will also release some icky gases, probably carcinogenic. So I certainly don't want this in my kitchen oven and gassing up my whole house. So instead, I figure if we make his neck really long, once we get him clayed up the way we want, we can leave the feet unclayed, because you can oven bake them more than once. So it's not just a one-shot deal. We can lift him up all clayed. I can hook him onto something like a hangman's, thing, let him bake in the oven like this, and then we can have another go, but this time maybe use air dry clay. So I have both, and of course Dave was like, "Ooh, clay!" He sent over some clay. So this is air dry clay, which is awesome for projects that are quick. Maybe it's your first project. They're great for beginning clay modeling. The only drawback is that you have to keep it airtight. It is air dry, so it'll be kind of dried out in 24 hours, unless you wet it, you put a plastic bag over it, and you try and keep that moisture. So that's why I think instead we're going to at least give a go with the oven bake variety. And for this one, you put it in the oven for 275 degrees for 15 minutes for every 1/4 inch that you build it up thick. And that's another reason why we want to use the armature and foil, so we don't have to build clay up so thick. A thin layer where we can put our textures is more the way to go. But we're going to have a whole talk about clay later on, but just so we can start kind of seeing what's coming down the pike. So I'd like to give this another attempt, but get it a little more proportionately correct. He might be kind of big for this tower. I mean, he's almost bigger than the tower in a way, which is good because if you look at all these dragons, especially like the little dude perched on the dragon that we just saw, I mean, they're you know, scale-wise, they're pretty big. So I'm just gonna move this out of the way and check out what I printed out. Let's try this idea. It might not work either way. Here's my acrylic rods, just reminding you guys to voice your opinion on whether you want floating wizard solo or if you want the tower with the wizard. And so here I have two different kinds of armature wire. This one you can tell is much thicker than this guy. This guy is very thin, so you can make very fine bends. And the idea here is not to bend out every bone, every tooth, every horn. This is literally just a very simple wire skeleton, and we're gonna do all the detail in the clay and bulk up with our foil. And here I have some mesh for the wings. That way the clay has something to kind of hold on to. I thought it would be a good idea. You can get this at the hardware store or even the craft store where I got all this other stuff right here. So I'm gonna put this aside for now. And I went ahead and printed out some of the dragons that we saw. Here's the one I was kind of leaning towards where he's already perched on the rock. Once we make our wire armature, kind of like a posable toy, we can pose him on the castle without worrying that our dimensions are going to be incorrect, meaning the proportions of the legs. It's not like the leg is going to magically get longer, you know, once we proportion it out to this dragon. I also like the size of the wings in proportion to the rest of the dragon. They're like really big, really like magnificent looking, and you will decide on horns and colors and, you know, all that kind of stuff next stream. So definitely start posting your favorite dragons on Discord. So I thought this was good. And if we have trouble with this one, I have this one with the fire breathing. Now, I didn't print out the whole thing. He's kind of missing part of a wing here, only because the angle wasn't great. We can just use the proportion of this. So I'm going to move this armature over here. And if we were to put our castle in the middle here and kind of figure out where we want this whole thing to go, and then Canner Bill Mato Yesy is here. Well, welcome. Hi, what is this Franken lightning detector? We are actually done with the Franken lightning detector. This is actually a whole new project where we took a light bulb and we converted it into a plasma globe by pumping high voltage electricity through it. And it looked super cool. So we're like, we need a way to display this thing, right? You know, it's gonna sit up here. So we decided to make a wizard castle, and we're making the dragon now to it that's attacking our wizard, which is going to be over here, over this plasma bulb. They're fighting over it, you know, and so we're going to create fire effects and all that. But first we need our dragon for that. And we are clay modeling. So first things first, before we start clay modeling, is making our skeleton. So let's check out these printouts as they scale to the castle. And I kind of guesstimated on my computer. You can see, I'm going to hold this closer here, that I blew up the picture. So this one in particular, you can see how pixelated it is, but that doesn't matter. All we need to see is just the basic shape so we can follow it along. So we can see that a size like this is pretty good. And again, we can make the dragon that looks like this and then bend him to our will as we need for the castle. Now, one thing is I thought his neck is a little bit too short. I want something with a longer neck, which we could, you know, just take our wire out longer. And then we have this guy, which I think is almost, check that out. He is almost a perfect fit to this castle. So my gut was like talking this dragon up to me from the get-go. So I think I am going to go with this dragon. And Canner Billimato Yesy is saying, I am before making plasma gun. And then this is aluminum. Why not use copper? Like Fallout 4 weapons. Yes, Fallout 4 weapons are awesome. Yeah, so we're using this because it's much easier to bend than copper. Although you can get thin copper and it's easy to bend too. This is what's like popularly used for model making, but I assume you can use copper too. You can basically use any wire that you can cook in the oven to help set up your clay. So yes, copper totally works too. Probably more expensive than armature wire though. You know, so I try and conserve that stuff for my steampunk builds where it's going to be visual, whereas this is going to be completely buried under clay. So you want to use the ugly stuff, you know, and get that out of the way. And then you're also saying you can paint the aluminum with copper paint. Yes, you can also do that too. And you just gave me an idea because for my steampunk projects, I always go out and actually buy copper. And so refrigerator tubing, just copper wire and things. And those are way more expensive than doing something like this and harder to bend. This is really easy to bend. So if you need anything about this kind of diameter, that's a really great idea. I'm going to steal it from you. Painting this copper. You know, you guys always have the best ideas. We get to talking and then I'm like, oh, that's a good one. I'm going to borrow it, right? So I'm going to put this out of the way and let's try and follow along with, you know, this dragon here. And of course, he is kind of facing the wrong way, but actually, no, he's not, because by the time we flip him over, he's going to be, yep, doing the wizard. So, yeah, we actually got him correct. And I'm going to bring you guys in closer to give you a closer view. Also, I'm going to shed some light on the subject. Look at that. Much better. Much better. So let's bring you in. Oh, wrong ring. All right. Get this guy over here. And so this is great. I mean, I wish we could almost like put this printout on the castle. It's probably going to look way better than what I built, but I'm super excited. This is a skill I've always wanted to learn, so I'm really excited about this. Now, because we don't know yet if we are going to be supporting the wizard figurine with this, I'm going to pretend we are, because we can always cut it short later, right? So let's see. I'm going to use the thicker one because that's more like a spine, you know, so we want a good support. So I'm just literally going to follow where I think his spine is, and I'm going to make it like much longer. And to not kind of lose track of where I am, I'm going to mark kind of where the opening of his mouth is. Now, I'm not starting with his nose or his bottom lip because we're going to create that solely out of clay. So that way I am not marrying myself to a certain mouth opening, you know, like really wide or really not so wide. We can decide on that later. And we have plenty left where we can use hot glue and LEDs to create that fire effect coming out just like this one. And oh, we got some shop kitties in here playing around. So I'm just kind of stretching this out of the way. And so if his mouth is here, let's just start bending this guy as if a spine. Whoa, there goes my foil. And let me grab some of these things out of the way. The other dragon is like grabbing all up in my armature like, no, I'm the better dragon. Don't do this. Canner Billy Matol Yessi, ooh, sending over his Instagram account. He's making plasma guns. I love that. I love those types of builds. We haven't done that here, so I think it's about time. And as I do this, right now it's flat. So let's get this kind of done up, and we want to remember that his head is actually going to be curving around the castle. So we want to start to add our 3D effect. Then he's going to go inside, you know, the back side of the castle, and then kind of curve around like this. This is so I think, you know, we're going to fine tune this once we put him in the castle. And let me reposition him, or maybe we'll just do this flat at first, and then I'll add the dimension. I'm trying to do too many things at once, getting way too creative here. And I know I'm totally covering him so you guys can't see anything, but we're almost there. And then I'm going to leave a little bit long of a tail. And again, say we cut this too short by accident. It's like, oh, darn, you know, I wanted a long tail. That's fine. We can always add a little bit of armature and wrap around and continue the tail. So this is really forgiving, this process. It's awesome that way. And then the tail in the picture wraps around to the back. So let's just get enough wire for that. So this is looking, I think, pretty good. Let's cut it where I think we need to cut it. I'm just grabbing like a needle nose pliers here. And let's see here. Something like this. And we'll see which dragon ends up being better. My original one or this one that we're doing more, you know, technically accurate. You know, sometimes when you do something just on a whim, sometimes, you know, you'll surprise yourself. You'll get a good result, you know. Other times, not so much. All right, so I'm going to start to then, now that we have this, I'm going to bring his tail out just a tiny bit and maybe use this to kind of help me out here. Much, much easier. And that's the tail that kind of flips. And that tail's a little bit long. You know, you can say goes past the tail, but that's okay. There. So we have the spine. And now let's start kind of adding these legs to it. And for that, I'm going to use this smaller armature right here, the thin kind. Much, much easier. So for that, let's kind of get an idea of here's his foot. And I'm going to make a hook for the foot because that'll allow us to like hang him if, you know, we want to paint him or if we're, you know, trying to bake him. So here's a foot. And the idea here is, you know, we may not use this position, but it'll allow us to make sure that one leg is not longer than the other leg or, you know, anything like that. So, and then he will go, let me just reposition, make sure he's positioned. He'll go right about there. It's going to attach here. So this is what I'm going to do. I know they'll kind of being off because that's easy to fix. So let me position, his hips are going to be right about there. And so I'm going to go ahead and thread it just like that. And I want to try and keep it at this mark. It'll slide, you know, around a little bit. And we're going to wind the legs just to kind of secure it to this armature. And I'm trying to wind it tight, but, you know, sometimes it's kind of tough. All right, so he's going to move up and down a little bit until we get further along in the process. And then Frozen Mustache is saying, you must have thunderstorms in your area. We lost you. Oh, no, we have. We are in that Pennsylvania, Jersey, and New York area that got super floods. Now, my particular area didn't get floods, but holy moly, did we get rain, winds. We had brownouts and blackouts, momentary blackouts over and over again all through the night. And then it seemed to have subsided. But yeah, we can still have remnants of power outages, you know, that they're fixing. So we have a leg here and a leg here. Now what I'm going to do with this leg here is kind of maybe get him out of the way. He'll be doing the splits here for a second. And let me position our wire once more and put it on our mark right there. And let's start. I'm going to put that bend back in. So he's going to go there just to get the proportions correct. And then there. And then there. And I'm just going to loop him a little bit. Make a little loop. Because this portion of the leg, we want to keep very thin. You know, just one tiny wire going through because the fingers are so thin, everything is so thin. So hopefully you guys have me back. Program is saying, Hero, oh my God, the sweatshirt is so awesome. Yes, you know, I'm preparing early for Halloween. My absolute favorite holiday. It really is. And let's see, I got our dragon here. So if you're just joining, we are making a clay dragon model. But before we do that, we're making our armature. So here we have our leg, and all I'm gonna do is lift him, and trying to keep this on our black mark, I am literally going to just kind of mimic it on the other side here. So he's just kind of like that, you know, just getting the proportions, you know, pretty much correct. And like that, and I'll put a little loop on his foot. All right, so we got 2 dragon legs that are pretty much the same size. Yes, we accomplished it. Now these are posable. We can pose them now, but in order to make them a little bit stronger, you know, so we're not like, it's not just like under its own weight, let's wrap a little bit more wire around it. So I'm taking the same gauge, and let's just kind of position him back on our black mark, which is over here. He gets slid up, and he'll probably move around from time to time, but he'll start to kind of stay put after a while. So all I'm gonna do here is just wrap another layer of wire, just wind it. And then we'll reposition the legs if we have to, if it gets a little bit, you know, bent. I'm going to just do that with it, and I'll remove this picture for now just so you guys can probably see a little bit better. So he's got his knee, his heel, you know, and his toes. So we're just going to continue wrapping this guy here. I can already feel that this is much stiffer now, and we can, but still bendy, you know, so it's not overly stiff where it becomes difficult to get the exact position we want. And of course, when we bulk them up with tin foil underneath, you know, we're not going to bulk them up to his final thickness, you know, because we still have to add the clay. So if you bulk up with foil to the final thickness and then you add the clay on top of that, well, then you got kind of a chonker, you know, a chonker dragon. And the penguin has returned. Hello, we just started our dragon here. And because this part is so thin, I'm not going to take it all the way out. I'm going to stop right about there. Again, if we messed up, we can always add more armature wire later on. And you are hearing my dogs. You know, they're just, someone's here and they're not happy about it, you know? So I'm going to do the same thing with the other leg here. And we're going to beef him up with some armature wire. And the penguin is asking, a dragon? Why, yes, a dragon. This is the dragon that's going to be fighting our wizard in our plasma ball lamp wizard castle. Yes, so the dragon is trying to get the plasma ball, you know, or plasma globe for whatever reason. Maybe it's nutrients for its babies, or maybe it's just cool and magical, and the wizard will be fighting it. So this dragon is going to be breathing out fire, while at the same time the wizard is going to be sending out his blue beam of magic, and the two forces will meet in the middle for a big explosion. And so we're going to create that with you know, cotton, hot glue, flickering LEDs. So we're going to try and make a whole big battle scene out of it. So this project just started as a fun, like, hey, can we like turn a light bulb into a plasma ball? Let's just try it for fun. So yeah, we sent high voltage through that, and it was awesome. Then we started to kind of like get ideas, like, how can we better display this? Because this is so awesome, right? And that's when the creative juices started turning. And it was like, you know, why don't we make a lamp out of it? Okay, it can't be any lamp. You know, plasma balls are just so magical looking. So what kind of goes along with our magical theme? Well, wizards and dragons, right? So I always like to incorporate something into the build that I've never done before. And this is where you guys come in. We've had so many amazing viewers with suggestions like, hey, try it like this. You're making this way too hard on yourself. And I usually am. And you guys are usually right. And the Penguin says, well, my goodness, puppers are in protect mom from dragon mode. Yes, they are. It's either some kind of delivery, or this is the time of night where people like to walk around the neighborhood, so they see this. And although they're young, sometimes they can act like old curmudgeons, like, get off my lawn, you know. One is only 7 months, and then the other one is like 5 years old. So they're very playful, but yes, sometimes they can act like curmudgeons. So you can see the legs got all kinds of twisted up. So let's get them kind of, at least this guy here, in position, and we'll position the other one later. So you can see here, at least he said, dragon's trying to grab onto me. He is proportionately correct now, unlike my first attempt where the legs ended up way too long and the wings too short. So he was looking like, you know, he had birth defects, you know, the poor thing, which, you know, that's tough enough on its own. But if you're going to battle a wizard, we need you in tip-top shape. The Penguin says, it all started by seeing what high voltage would do. It did, and that sparked this whole project. Excellent, he is saying. All right, so we have this leg, and I'm just going to kind of make a frog leg for now, following the original bends that we had. And we're going to figure this leg out on top of the castle and figure out how it's going to attach. So we got the leg situation. Let's get the wing. Now the wing in the back, you know, obviously we can't see, but we're going to use the same technique with this leg. You make one of them and then you kind of like make the other one based on it. So same thing, I'm going to use this thinner wire because it's so much easier to bend and we can double up on it. Plus, when we start getting into finer muscles and things, we don't want to use the thick wire. We want a little more room for our clay. So I'm going to do the same. It's going to attach itself, you know, right about here. And I'm going to do it a little bit, give myself a little bit more length this time. And then we have the arm. And then it kind of goes up here. And I'm just basically following. Now I'm not going to do this little finger here. We're going to make that out of clay. And so I'm going to bend kind of this way. And, you know, again, these don't have to be super, super perfect. Because once we start laying down our foil, that's when things get awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and cut. We're going to add the other phalanges in a little bit here. So I'm going to do one more look-see here. I think we got it, and I'm leaving this long on purpose. Something like that. And again, if we oops and cut it too short, we can always add, you know, we can always add more. Oh, and I didn't mean to do that because I wanted to, you know, make it with the other wing. But I think we can still use this. So the Penguin is asking, this is the skeleton? Yes. So we're making a wire skeleton, which we're then going to cover up in aluminum foil, and that'll create our base for our clay. And you can see how easy this bends. It very easily bends out of position. So I'm going to get this guy. Oh, and let me mark on here kind of where the wing is, because once we lose the picture, then it's going to be like, wait, is this here? So we'll just kind of mark that the wing is kind of there. So let me get to winding this. Oh, easier said than done. And they will slide around for a little bit, but there we go. Let's get this guy. And what I'm going to do now is do the same thing and coil it to about here. And then I'll probably leave this because look how thin that bone is. So I don't want to double coil it. It's super, super thin. So I think I'm going to leave it that way. And we're still going to try and stretch some meshing on here. So we are going to add bulk. I'm gonna hold off on that. And so for this, let me untangle. I'm getting a whole tangled mess going on right here, right now. All right, so let me add a bit of a sharper bend, but it's gonna get kind of messed up as I do this anyways. So let's see if I can maybe start here to give it more strength. And its neck, it's gonna kind of be in the way, but that's okay. All right, I wound around the spine a little bit, and now let's start winding the wings. Now, anyone who's got experience with armature making and stuff, please, you know how these streams are, please do throw in your tips. Especially when we were making our Franken lightning detector, like one of you guys mentioned. We had awesome people with a lot of experience in model making, foam miniature building, terrain making. So we ended up with a very awesome looking final product by incorporating all your guys' suggestions. And this is like kind of a build together type of thing. So if you have ideas for the color of the dragon that you want, or, you know, maybe you want the dragon to be, you know, more horns, less horns, we do it. Very scaly, more fish-like, more hair-like, like a lion or something like that. We attempt it all. I myself like the reptilian looking dragon, something similar to this guy here from the Game of Thrones. And figuring out the flame effect is going to be interesting. So I'm coming up with as many ideas as I can on how to get the flame shooting out of his mouth. One of which is to have that thicker armature rod coming out of his mouth, and we can put tinfoil on it, cover it in tinfoil, and then send some LEDs down that rod. And the idea, in my head at least, is that this tinfoil is going to reflect the LED light. And then we can encapsulate that in hot glue, like make hot glue flames and stuff. Or I should say, also use very finely diffused cotton balls, or polyfill. I have a ton of stuffing from our fart detector build where we turned a harmless stuffed animal into a fart detector. So we emptied him of much of his stuffing content. So I used some of that for our lightning detector cloud effects. And I have a ton left over, so we can make fire effects that way. I also wanted to make fire effects for our wizard castle, make some of the roofs look like they're ablaze, smoke coming out of the castle. Now, Wrench Army members, we did build a mini fog machine for our Frankenstein castle build. But for this, I wanted to use more practical effects, like cotton and things that we all have and can make and grab a hold of really, really easily. So, let's see here. Let me position him one more time because I just realized I was talking to you guys and I might have gone too far with our armature, with our windings. So let me kind of get him, like you can see his legs fell all the way down his butt. So let's get his legs repositioned to the black mark that I have here and get him kind of set. So I'm not really going to worry about the fact that the legs are not are not matching at this point because we are going to change this anyways. So let's see. Once the armature starts to, there we go. The picture got away from me. All right. So that's not too bad. Because this guy is actually going to be more like this. And I want to keep the wings for now extra long. We can always trim them back later. So he's looking good there, even though his little frog legs keep sliding down. And we can tack that, you know, perhaps with some salt or hot glue, but keeping in mind that the hot glue will melt in the oven, but that won't matter too much because I'm just going to move his spine down a little bit, make this a little more realistic, and move his head up. As this dragon is coming together, I'm finding kind of, you know, ooh, this looks better, that looks better, you know, let's move his head up like that. Yes, very nice. Now that we have one wing, we can pretty much copy this wing on to the other wing, you know? And before we do that, let's kind of measure out these other spikes. So we have this spike right here. And this is a shorter spike, but we'll leave him kind of long for now. And then let's make our next spike. And I'm going to move this jealous dragon out of the way because he keeps trying to jack us up and be all like, you know, no, he's trying to sabotage this dragon because, you know, he knows he's messed up. It's like, oh, I was your first creation. You know, and you know in the movies where the scientists like create something better and then the first creation gets jealous and that's how all the problems start. All right. So I also like the way this wing is folded because if you're flapping, you might want to put the phalanges down the wing like that. But I'm going to have them all come from this corner right here, just like this wing in the picture. I think it's really cool. And he's got a nice big knuckle to hide all of our, you know, wire situation right here that we're going to be winding. So I won't wind too much because once we put our wire mesh, this will be far more stable. So I say. All right. So this guy right here is going to be this guy. And the picture kind of gets cut off, but we're just going to assume it's about there. And you can extend all this with clay. So it's not like, oh, the wire's over, we can't go any more than that, you know, which is what we're going to do with the head. This just goes to the opening of the mouth. We're going to build out the upper jaw and the lower jaw totally out of clay. And so this guy, I think we'll leave kind of like that, just kind of a singular wire for now, till we kind of figure out what we want to do. Actually, I'm going to undo him because I just had a fantabulous idea. So I hope I did. We're going to find out here real quick. All right. So instead, I'm going to go like this. Get him kind of positioned again. And I'm going to measure out this longest one right here, and we can do 2 at a time. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this, and the piece that we just did, I'll just use that for a shorter finger, you know, a shorter wing piece, and cut this guy like that, and that way we can just go like this, right, and wrap it. So we're not wrapping so many tiny, like, singular pieces. Program is asking kind of a cool question because they're so multicultural. So y'all think dragons are real. I would like to see bone artifacts, you know, because you see they're very dinosaur-like. There are a lot of dinosaurs in, you know, the mythology that look a lot like Tyrannosaurus rexes. You know, they have kind of the smaller arms, the chunkier, you know, chunky bodies. So who knows? Could be. So you see that I got a 2-for-1 deal, you know? And so I'm going to cut this guy at about here, maybe. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and cut this guy. I'm going to leave that guy long. I'm being chicken. I'm totally being chicken. So that leaves only one more kind of finger. So how many fingers do we have? We have a thumb, 2, 3, 4, 5. So just like a bat. So that's good. That's going to work out. And the penguin is saying basically it's probably dinosaur fossils. Yeah. Like pterodactyls and things. Because without seeing one, we can certainly estimate how they look. but I don't know that we can know for sure 100% how a pterodactyl looks. We need to like interview a paleontologist while we build this. Ask this person a bunch of questions. It'd be very interesting to know what what they think about the dinosaurs. How accurate are, when you watch on the Smithsonian Channel or any one of the science channels, how accurate are the drawings? Like, how do they even know what colors the dragons were? Oh, this got flipped. This got flipped over. So this one here, this shorty has to go over here because this one goes here, and then this one goes here. Am I missing a finger? Wait, that one, that one, that one. Oh, he's got 5. He's got the thumb and 5. 5 of them. Let me see how much this guy has. So this guy has a thumb, and then he's got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, a thumb and 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe he's got 5. That's odd. I kind of like it. We'll add it for good measure. Add one. I don't mind adding one. So it's like a thumb and 5 fingers, or maybe that's the palm, has a hook on it. Somebody with dragon anatomy, anatomy knowledge needs to chime in. So I'm just gonna hook this guy kind of in the back here. Somebody's in the neighborhood and he is not wanted. The dogs are like, off with your head. All right, pull this guy taut. All right, so let's kind of do a quick reposition. So I would say all in all, so far this process hasn't been difficult. It's just, detailed, you just have to sit here. And I am finding using a picture, guys, is definitely the way to go. I eyeballed mine, and listen, it's not like it came out horrible or anything, but this one I think is going to come out better, and the other one I'm going to, have to hide somewhere so no one sees it. No one sees that mess up. Interesting fact. Western dragons have wings. Eastern dragons don't. You are so right, because I looked at tons of dragon examples. Specifically, I was trying to find dragons crawling up towers. And dragons of the East were a lot more snake-like. And so they would wind around the tower, but not have any wings. So that, is something now that I'm remembering now that you mention it. And then Eastern dragons are not something to fear. Yeah. Early dragons were depicted just as huge snakes. Yep. And so I saw a lot of pictures like that. But for ours, if you're going to fight a wizard, you're not the peaceful, Eastern type of dragon. So I'm going to make this guy just a little bit shorter. And then all we're going to do is basically mimic for the other wing. So now we have a really, really great template. And then we'll figure out how we want to position each of these fingers and start meshing them with our mesh here. And so let's, measure out this other wing. And I'm kind of running low, but we can steal from the other dragon. And I have more, so we're good. Look at Penguin with all his awesome dragon facts. So again, I'm going to, leave this a little bit long to wrap around, because I didn't accommodate that last time for the legs. So we're just going to kind of get a basic length here of what we need to cut. And like that. And something like that. Let's give him a cut. And the penguin is saying, I wonder if it's because Europe has many seas and rivers. Yeah, that could be. And they need a way to traverse them. They needed wings to travel. Yeah. So how much of this do I want to wind? All right, so I can wind this way. I'm getting all confused. I'm getting all confused. All right. Okay, this is looking good, guys. Oh, I think so. So we're going to put that wing down, and it's not kind of, matching the picture because we have him turned around. And let's do the same thing where we kind of wind our coil around the main wing, the main finger bone of our wing. And these legs keep getting in the way. Okay, where am I in my windings? There I am. And we're going to come back around. And I'm going to pull this guy. We don't really need to, maintain the shape too much. We're just going to wind, and then we can match it up to this wing. Which kind of, come to think of it, won't matter because we're going to position this guy on the castle, and the wing positions are going to be different for each wing. I thought it would be cool because he is perched on the castle, and he needs to... I'm wrapping the wrong one. I'm wrapping the wing instead of our armature wire, which means the wing will end up being shorter than the other wing. And like I was saying, this dragon, his legs are going to be grabbing the backside of the castle, maybe even damaging it. And so we're going to have some rubble where his claws are digging in. And then one of the wings, a lot of them have that little thumb thing, or so I think it's a thumb, or it's a hook on the palm, who knows. And so we can have that portion of the wing kind of in and hanging onto the castle where the wing fans out. So it's not open, it's closed. And then the other wing is fanning out as if the dragon is trying to keep its balance on the castle while it is blowing fire onto the wizard, Just not a fun time. And the penguin is saying, we were talking about Eastern dragons not having wings and Western dragons having wings, and why culturally the dragons are different on both sides, and the hemispheres. And so in China, you can move more easily because, yes, you're on a large continent. You don't have to, traverse bodies of water to get from one point to the other. And you can walk, easily everywhere. Or if you're a kind of snake dragon, you can slither everywhere. But I imagine because you're so huge, one little slither moves you, propels you pretty quickly. And program 13.1.18.11, he's got a little emoji with the shades. Yeah. All right, we're almost to the tip. And I remember I didn't go all the way. So maybe one other wind. And we call it a day on this main wing bone structure. And we're going to add the other little fingers. And our armatures, like the main components of our armature are there. And then we can mesh up the wings. And so he's looking kind of cool. Yeah, it's got his legs look a little lizard-esque though. And so I am just going to now match up what we did with this wing. And which way does he even go? He goes this way. All right. And his legs keep there we go. So I'm just going to hold the two together, probably easier, and just bend exactly like, oh, there goes my mesh. I'll grab it in a bit. And then bend him like that. So we got two wings, one with fingers, one without fingers. So let's add some fingers on this guy. And simply I'm going to do it better this time, which I'm going to measure this first one right here. Like that. But I'm going to add a little bit to it. so we have room to curl. And I'm gonna measure him like that. Then I'm going to bend so we can get a whole other finger out of it. And cut him right here. It's alive! Yes, it is, just like our Frankenstein, but this is alive instead of electricity. It's alive in a very fire, you know, type of way. So I'm excited to try this fire effect. I don't know, guys. Hopefully it'll look super, super cool. And hopefully this dragon will look cool. I'm excited to try clay. And I don't know if you guys have ever done like a clay project outside of school. You know, obviously I remember doing clay projects as a kid in elementary school and all that, where you make little cups and little plates and things like that. But not like trying to do it, you know, so professionally. So here we go, my final bend. And we got 2 fingers, a 2-for-1 on the fingers. So, and I know this is getting to be kind of hard to figure out like which fingers go where, but I'm pretty sure they go in order like that, you know, from I remember this one's a little shorter. Then this is the longest finger, kind of like the middle finger is the longest finger. And then our 4th finger, 5th finger. And a lot of the dragon pictures are having kind of this 5th one. At the end of the day, as we're claying, if we figure that this is not correct, we can just chop it off and be done with it. So I'm going to try and mash up or measure up. This one is about here. So let's get him cut up likewise. And then it starts to get tough to know which goes with what, with which. And then this one is the next one. So we'll cut him up here. Let me turn this around. Just like that. The Penguin said, I made a Star Trek Enterprise theme tile in school. Oh my gosh, that memory came back all of a sudden. Oh my gosh. Doesn't it though sometimes? I have to remember what I made. I mean, I must have made like potteries and things like that. That's kind of like what we all make. All right, I'm going to do 2 more. I'm going to do the same thing, a 2-for-1. And maybe that's why these dragons end up with 5, like a thumb and 5 extra digits, is because clay makers are like doing what I'm doing, like the 2-for-1. All right, so that ends right about there. So I'm going to do the same thing, 2-for-1. Guys, we might have discovered something. Clay makers should be like, oh, she's on to us. All right, so this is the done one. This is the not done one. So already I can tell that this armature is becoming a lot easier to manipulate, you know, because we're making this stronger. And the Penguin is saying, I should say Starship Enterprise. Oh. They have that late night on BBC America. And so I end up watching Next Generation, Enterprise, you name it. I watch them all. I can't resist. They're just so much fun. And guys, since I have this wing kind of here, I'm a cheat. I'm not going to use the other wing. I'm going to be like, okay. And then this one is here. This one's here. This one is here. Look, pretty much cut to perfection. And then this guy is right here, and he needs to be cut about there. All right, we didn't even need you other wings, so there. You ain't so fancy. So he's saying it's the Enterprise from Next Generation, like that not Enterprise the series, Star Trek Enterprise, but Star Trek The Next Generation, Enterprise the ship inside Star Trek The Next Generation is what I assume you mean. And then the Penguin is saying, I'm going through Voyager at the moment. Oh, that's a good one too. There are a lot of good ones. I don't think there was like a bad one. There are certainly ones that I like better than others, but there certainly wasn't a bad one. All right, so we got all the fingers going on. And now let's try and position this thing on the castle and figure out how we want to do this, you know? So here we go. Oh, and his legs are falling. So I'm going to move this out of the way so we don't get confused, you know? Or I should say I don't get confused. And bring this guy back. And I have this wizard tower here just for reference. You know, it's a little tall. It's gonna have a bit of it chopped off, but it'll give us an idea. And this is the back side that I've purposely left empty for our dragon to try and crawl up. And I'm gonna just bust you guys back just a little bit. Yeah, back it on up. Yep, just so you guys can see the full degree of struggle that's about to take place right now. All right, so we have the dragon's mouth, which is at this little mark here. It's tiny, but that's the mark. So, and then the Begwin is saying, I'm going through Discovery slowly, and it's much better than people say it is. I really like Discovery. I know some people really did not like it. I'm a huge fan. And I really like Picard, too, the new Picard. So I know some people were not fans, you know, but I really liked it. All right, so the wings actually, because we wrapped so much wire around it, are pretty, you know, it's pretty much staying in its marked location. Oh, no, it's not. I lie. But we'll just kind of put them there. So here's the legs. And I think a cool way to position the legs is like, you know, maybe one leg can be up here, like it's crushed part of the roof because its foot is hanging on. And I don't want the torso to be touching the tower like this, because then he's not going to have a stomach. The stomach will be fused to the castle. So we want to make sure that he's elevated, you know, a little bit so we can bend the foot. And we want to make sure, you know, these are relatively straight. So I'm going to bend the knee up, you know, like that. And he's, you know, got his foot on the castle like that. And then maybe his knee will bend, and maybe he's got his foot kind of on here. Something like that. And this tail, you know, now we need to just bend it the other way. So now we can bend this any way we want, because we know proportionately we got this right now. So we can start getting a little creative. So let me just make sure that the legs are kind of where we want them. And clearly now this torso is going to start taking shape, the spine. So I'm moving the tail away because we're going to curl it around the castle like this, so, but you know, we can wait for that. That's not the most important thing to try and position here. And now the Sharpie has kind of like marked everything up. So that's kind of good because it kind of makes a ring of where I need to be. So he's going to be kind of like that with his leg. We'll get him kind of so-so, and then we'll start adding some foil, and that should really start helping us out here. And then here's the wings, and let me move his head, and here's his head. So see how he's backed away from the castle a little bit? I'm just gonna take this and kind of curl it in because it's hitting the table. And this is the rod that's gonna extend, and it's probably extended far too far, you know, but it's gonna support our fire. So I'm just kind of curl it in, and we can see that his mouth, the opening to his mouth is at that mark. So we have folded it. So it turns out that the legs on this dragon are actually a little bit bigger than the ones on my previous dragon. So, which is good, you know, it shows that I was kind of in the right direction, but not quite there. So let me just rebend this leg here. There we go. I kind of lost part of the knee. There. So the tail goes like this. And the legs like this. That way the torso is not like resting on, you know, our tower. So now I'm going to move this wing out of the way. And he's coming up around, and I thought it would be really cool to have this thumb part right here kind of digging into the castle like that. And so his wing is dynamically coming out and back like that. So his we'll make a clay claw that's digging in, and maybe it'll even have some like rubble that he's, gotten into the castle. And then this wing can be more like, for him not to lose his balance, or maybe he's even wafting his wing to the wizard, during the battle to kind of spook him a little bit, like wafting some air. And so if we stand this up ever so carefully, I'm going to try and see if I can give you guys a better view. There. So here's what we have. A lot of the dragon is hidden behind the castle. It wants to tip this way. So a lot of the dragon is hidden behind the castle because we're going to have some really great detail going on here. And of course, the star of the show, really, as cool as the dragon is our plasma ball, which is going to be up here. So we want this to be the star of the show. But creeping around the back here is our dragon. So you see the tail. Let me see if I can prop him up with this other piece of PVC here. So the castle will be a little bit tilted, but you see the tail curling around, and the legs in the back, and it kind of gives some interest to the piece because you're like, this part of the roof will look okay, but then it has a really decent crack crumbling, and you look behind and it's a dragon foot. And you know how some lamps are made to view just from one side and they're boring on the other side? I thought it'd be fun to make this lamp. It's got something going on all sides. And so that's why I'm putting the dragon on the back, because if I put it in the front, everybody will be looking at the dragon and not our plasma ball, right? And that's high voltage. That's the cool part, right? So then we have our wing here, where he's going to be grabbing on. So see by how he's grabbing onto the castle, in this view now, you see his fingers flowing up to the air. So you'll see like a wing coming up. So you'll see the plasma ball, but you're going to be like, something's going on back there, because his wing will be back there. Then he's going to have his neck coming out here, and it's going to be arching down, and he's going to be blowing the fire, breathing the fire, blowing the fire, a flamethrower onto our wizard. And of course his mouth will be gaping here. And so his upper jaw and lower jaw. So he's not going to be this close to the wizard and blowing like a little tiny stream of fire. He's going to be blowing from here. And the wizard is going to be, shooting his blue thing. So now we have this wing. And I thought it would be cool to make this wing kind of like, out and fanning like this, because now it's uniting this piece and this piece together with kind of like a background. So I thought that might be kind of neat. And I'm going to very gently use my face to hold it and do this and move this out of the way and put this down so I can show you kind of like how it'll end up looking. So maybe tough to see, maybe not. I'll try and move my thumb. But we have the tail wrapping around the castle, which is not wrapping for now, or else it's too hard to lay it down. We have the foot, going up this ledge, crushing the roof. We have this foot kind of anchoring itself to the castle. Here's the rest of its spine. And here's the wing that is anchoring to the castle, giving us that fan effect. And the other wing, which is kind of fanning out this way. So I think that's kind of a very dynamic dragon pose, because you have kind of a very cool S shape to the back, and it's pretty believable, I think. So let's start trying to foil some of this, and once it's foiled, it might make it easier to then add the mesh. Because right now everything's like really loosey-goosey. So let's attempt my first foiling of, it'll either foil up nice or foil my whole plans, So I'm going to kind of lay him down gently like that, because I do like this pose, and move his, It's his little legs that just, you know, and his legs are about like this, but even with the foil, we'll be able to kind of, you know, get everything pretty well done. Now I have a couple different kinds of foil. I have the cheap foil that comes in pre-cut sheets. These pack down real tightly, and then I have the more expensive foil, I guess, that you pull out of a roll. It's more chunky and stuff. I'm not quite sure which foil to use, but we'll start with this one and see what happens. So let's build up some leg muscles, shall we? We need some quadriceps going up in here. So let's refer to the picture of the dragon real quick. And there he is on the right. This is kind of like the one we're using. Now, we're not going to sit there and try and make every muscle. That's for the clay. We're going to, in essence, make a foil tube to represent the leg. And that's pretty much all we're doing for that. So let's attempt this. All right. So I'm going to start with small pieces. We can use tape if we have to. So let me prepare some of my masking tape. Because all of this, once the clay is holding everything together and it's baked, you know, it's okay if it's a little loosey-goosey. So I'm just going to make sure that my legs are at least in the right spot. Yeah. Yep, they are. All right. So let's get some quads going. You know, I'm just going to, you know, maybe this is too much. It's too much. He's done too much leg day. And again, the objective is to try and, you know, maybe I'll build it up down here. Try and build up the legs, but not to the point where it's the size that you actually want it with the clay, because then you got to put the clay on top, right? So now he's even chunkier, and now you got a dragon that's hit the buffet way too many times, you know, so it wouldn't be realistic that he's fighting a wizard, because he's like, I'm so full. All right, so I think I'll just wrap this whole thing. And let's push it down tight. And so we got a thigh, a little quad there. Let's wrap up another quad. And we'll see. I'm excited for the, you know, the actual clay. We'll see how that goes, you know. We'll practice getting some detail and things, because I don't know. It'll be my first attempt at clay sculpting, you know. Worst case scenario, we just kind of get clay covered in this. It might still look cool, you know, just simple. And the other idea I had that I want to run by you, now remember, we're going to bake this in the oven, but wouldn't it be cool, guys, if it had red LED eyes? And so I saw in a YouTube video, like this clay making person, stuff was awesome, making people and making all kinds of animals, but they did indeed bake the LED right in the oven, and the thing worked. The thing totally worked coming out of the oven. So I'm kind of thinking, you know, of trying it. And Program is saying harsh ASMR. Yes, I probably wouldn't do very well on an ASMR stream. You know, they would be like, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing. That is not soothing at all. No. It's like, no, you don't even know the meaning. It's, yeah, I would think the tin foil is more like, yeah, I don't want to listen to that ASMR at all. And so I'm kind of unbending his leg a little bit just so I can kind of get, you know, the foil in places. I'm going to smush that down. And let me grab my scissors that are getting like kind of covered up. And any place where I feel like I've over bulked, I can always cut some off, you know. But for now, I'm just bulking up to see how the thing even looks. You know, because really the coup d'etat, like the, not coup d'etat, but like the wow factor comes from the clay. But that's all this foil that we're adding is less clay that we have to add. So we're going to, you know, conserve a lot on clay. And so I'm going to go ahead at this point and move him into position. And this wing here is being all up in my way. All up being difficult. And I'm going to give him buttocks, you know? We all want buttocks, right? Little Kim Kardashian buttocks on him. There we go. Make them nice and plump. And a little bit more, right? Grabbing these sheets here. Plump up his butt. And you can see that it already starts to kind of make everything stay where it needs to stay. And then program is saying, yes, it's still be pretty lightweight. And yeah, that's kind of the other nice thing with this, especially like this is a pretty small dragon. But imagine somebody making a much larger project. I mean, that thing's going to weigh a ton. So this is kind of a way to not only economize on your clay, like I was saying in the beginning. It's not like clay is the most expensive medium, but it's not cheap. You know, it's not super cheap either. So if you can conserve it and save it for other projects, even better. And so I'm kind of making my foil really tight, you know, whether that's correct or not, I don't know. We'll see. But I figured it kind of gives me a more true to form of what it's going to be rather than have puffy foil. And you want to err on the side of being less bulky than more bulky. But listen, worst case scenario, say you over bulk, no problem. You can just remove the clay and start over. And I think what I'm going to do is once I like the bulk, I'm going to wrap it in tape. That way the clay's got kind of a nice surface. And say I don't like it and I want to debulk a little bit. Well, it's much easier to remove the clay from, you know, a nice taped surface than it is going to be from crinkly, you know, foil. So, see, and we have the foil and we can still move his little legs. So we can still do kind of a final type of positioning. And so one of the things I was noticing with these dragons, going back to it, is they have skinny little bellies. And then they have kind of the chest is bigger than their little belly. So I'm going to try and mimic that one way or another with this build. And our objective for tonight is to get him foiled up, or allow him to foil our plans, however it goes. That way he's ready for clay next week. And next week we're probably going to start the clay process, you know, even if we get halfway through and then continue it on. Or if we do a good example of each of the parts of the dragon, then I can go ahead and just kind of wrap it up, you know, and we can get it baked for you guys, and we can wrap up the Wizard's Castle, where if you were here for the Frankenstein castle foam miniature that we build, we're going to be using a lot of the same, you know, kind of foam techniques. And as I work my way up to the wings, I am just making sure the wings are positioned in their position. All right, let's see the black mark, and I know you guys kind of can't see. What am I doing here? All right. Yep. I think they look kind of good there. I'm gonna push them down. Then it looked like a it's beginning to look like a lizard, guys. Which I guess is a good thing because, you know, that's what they look like. So let me cover his neck. And here's the black mark for his mouth right here. So I don't want to go past that, just to kind of remind myself. Actually, I'm going to try and stay well short of that. There we go. And here, where the wings are, I'm trying to create that chest. See, the skinny waist and the chest. So he's going to be like this. And let's continue. He needs more butt, though. That's for sure. A little more butt. But let me continue building up his chest here. So from this side view, you can see he's got a bulkier chest and still a skinny waist. So let's get that chest. I think I'm going to stop there for now, and then we can, you know, bulk up even more. So we're gonna under bulk until we have to over bulk. So I'm going to start cutting slightly smaller pieces and kind of hitting up his wings. And I'm only gonna go to his thumb. You know, I keep calling it a thumb, but you know, where all the other fingers come out of, that central point. And then the rest we're just gonna leave plain and put the, you know, put our nice little mesh. So I'm gonna squeeze nice to create like a taper. And so here he is. He's kind of beginning to stay a little bit more, which is nice. That's, you know, that's helping me out a lot when we were doing this, because his position is so complicated. He was moving around a whole lot, you know, and I thought maybe for a beginner I should just put him on the floor and then breathe fire up at the wizard. But I was like, nah, if we're gonna do this, like, let's just go nuts with it, right, guys? Let's just go nuts. And hopefully you guys are making it through some of this harsh ASMR situation here with the foil. You know, I was gonna say foam, you know, because we were working with foam there for a while. And I'm gonna go up his arm there, and then we're, I think, foiled. I might add more to his tush and his spine a little bit. He does need a nice tush. There we go. He's got a little arm. He's got his elbow right there. He's got, you know, his little thumb, you know, claw's gonna come out. So this is looking more like a dragon. I was, you know, a little worried there with the wire form. It was like kind of loosey-goosey all over the place. So I'm adding more to his chest area, because you have to imagine dragons are large, they're heavy. So their musculature for their wings right at the shoulder, they ain't skipping arm day, that's for sure. You know, I would be skipping leg day before I'd be skipping arm day if I were a dragon. So, and I may rebend these wings, because one of the things that I'm learning is, see how it's anchored to the center wire, but as you begin to bulk, you lose this length right here. So here you have this size arm, and because he is bending and anchoring to the castle, you can see that this arm is, you know, as long as these fingers, and this arm is now longer. See, look at the difference in length, you know. But of course he's anchoring. So once we get him foiled up, we can rebend this the way we want and get him a little bit more proportionate. We know at least his arms are the same length, his legs are the same length. We don't have to worry about that. We just want the limbs to be, you know, the same segments. All right, so I'm thinking this is, ooh, his butt fell off. You know, let's just give him a little more butt. So let's take a look here. And if I turn him around, you can see that he's got his puffed up chest, and it gets thin on his torso. And I think I'm going to leave it. I might do one more wrapping along the torso right here and not go too much more than that. So one of the things, if we want to do the LED eyes, I have to wire it before the clay, because the clay has to go over the wires, you know. So we'll position the LED eyes and run the wire, you know, down its back, down its belly, or whatever, through the tail. Or I'm thinking underneath the leg here, where this leg is going to anchor to that hut, and run the wire inside the tower and do it that way. So I'm thinking that's the best way. Ooh, he lost some butt. Let's get his butt back. I'm thinking that's the best way to run the LED if we decide to do the LED. And Kareth Paka is here. Well, hello, Rachel. What's going on here? We are making the armature, meaning the skeleton of our dragon, which we are then going to turn into a clay model next week. So that's going to be super, super exciting. All right, so we have him kind of, you know, we have him pretty much laid out. He looks like a lizard, which I guess is a good thing. Let me kind of fix his arm here. Ah, much better. See, now they're both, his elbows are the same length, and he's grabbing on, so much, much better. I'm going to start with this wing because look kind of how nicely it's placed. This one's all scraggly and all over the place. So let's get some practice with this wing that's laid out a little bit better. And so let's, I'm going to fetch the mesh that fell over the table. So I'll be right back. I'm going to put you guys on a quick intermission that'll last like less than 3 seconds. Yeah. Whoop! So Carrot Packer is awesome because he reminded me to unmute the microphone. I was giving you guys a break from all the foil, you know, so you can do ASMR in your heads. So I got this mesh from the craft store, which is the same place that I got all this armature wire. And it's, you know, specifically used for instances like this where you have to bridge large gaps with clay. Now, can certainly be done. Like I said in the beginning, you don't have to build any of this stuff. You can just like create your dragon out of clay. It's going to be heavier. You're going to consume more clay. For me as a beginner, I think it's tougher because I don't think I'd get the skeletal proportions correct. I think he'd be all like really wonky looking, like the wizard put a really bad, you know, shrinking head, bigifying the tail type of spell on him. So I'm just trying to unwrap this thing, which is like Rachel proof, you know. It's like, oh, Rachel proof packaging. No. All right, so the idea is rather than trying to bridge, you know, with clay ourselves, which for me, I already can tell you is going to be a disaster. I want to go ahead and just put some kind of mesh in between. So that way we have a little more rigid structure and we can just put clay right on top of this mesh. We don't even have to foil. So let's try and figure out this situation. So I think the best thing is I'm going to grab my Sharpie and just draw on it, you know? Let's just draw a shape. So it's going to kind of go here. And let's just kind of, you know, so we can get this thing, you know, cut out. And it's making a very, very light Sharpie mark to make things difficult. And what I'm going to do is from this finger to this finger, I'm not going to draw, you know, a straight line. I definitely want it to have like cuts, you know, like this. And again, if we mess up and oops, I wanted it to go further, it's okay, just add clay. You know, it's got most of the bulk it needs to hang on. And let me just bring this finger up. We're going to start with this, and then we can cut as needed. And where does the wing end? Does it go to his elbow, or does it go to his thumb? Let's see here. Oh, so his wing, he's still got wing skin on his armpit. So yeah, it's got to go to the armpit. So we'll cut it kind of large, and then we can fine tune this later. So this has got to go to the armpit. All right. So that's what we got. See? And it's on me. It's like the Borg. It's assimilated me. I am Borg. So I wonder if I can cut this with my scissors or if I need tin snips. These are pretty sharp scissors. Probably not great for the scissors to do this. But, oh, this is really easy. Okay, yeah, so you can, whoa, a little too easy. I almost overcut. So let's see here. So thanks, Kareth, for letting me know about the sound. You know, I was getting so excited to continue this that I was like, I muted y'all. Or muted myself from you all. All right. So we're just going to cut. And it's like taking the dragon with it. Move you, dragon. And actually maybe do something like this where you guys can actually see what I'm doing. It's much easier for me to hold it up here so that way the dragon doesn't like, give me my wings! It's trying to grab it from me. All right. So we'll see how this mesh idea works out. I saw it in the store and I'm like, probably a good idea to try and use this. Do I have the right fingers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One more finger. It's fighting me. I'm gonna cut this a little, what I think more than what I need. And something went down. Not quite sure what it is, but as long as it wasn't our dragon, then we're good. All right, so let's move him back here and figure out how we going to attach this. I have an idea. Let's see. Let's see if my idea will work. So, how does this, like this? So I'm thinking we can probably take more of this thin armature and weave it inside the little, you know, things in here. And so here we have some. And I am thinking we can kind of get him positioned. And I am a little bit short here, you can see, but I think that's going to be okay. So the idea here is, ouch. I'm like, the idea here is, as if I even know. No. And Carrot Pack saying, wear gloves, Rachel, careful with the mesh. Yes. Normally, wire or even chicken wire is horrible once you cut it. This is actually soft. I would say it's like a step up. It's almost like a cloth. It's really not bad. And then the Carrot Pack is like, wow, this camera is bright. Yeah, that's a webcam, you know, unlike the others. So it's tough to get them all to look the same, you know, totally different types of cameras. And then Program is saying, imagine using high pressure water jet table to cut the mesh. Oh yeah, that would be like way MacGyvering it, but that would be awesome. You know, that's an awesome idea. And yes, about the wearing gloves. Yeah, you could definitely wear gloves, but I don't feel it's being so bad right now. So I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. And I think I'm going to cut lengths of this, even if it's like a little bit long. And the idea is I'm going to try and weave this through, like sewing. We're going to sew is basically what we're doing. So I'm going to, let's start maybe over here. And I'm going to go like that. So I've anchored this right there by making a loop. And for this, I might bring you guys in, you know, just to see this fiasco a little bit better, and for you guys to have some great suggestions like you always do for me. All right. So I think what I'm going to do now is feed this through, because this will also create some very cool, like, and it would be helpful if you guys could see what the heck is going on. Some cool striations, you know, like neat shapes. And so I think I'm going to weave this through. Almost like sewing. See, we're sewing. I don't know if this is going to be a good idea or not. We'll soon find out whether this armature sewing is actually a thing or if I'm making it way more difficult on myself, which is quite possible. There we go. And at the same time I'm doing this, I'm having to pay attention to the ends to make sure this end will match up with this spike here, and this end will match up as we sew. So it might be easier to actually sew from the tip and move our way up. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. Let me undo this, because if you're off, then you'll continue to be off more and more and more and more until you work your way up to the thumb. You know, that's what I'm calling it. You know, unless a paleontologist comes on here and Carrot Pack is like, Rachel's like MacGyver. Yeah, oh yeah, we are trying to MacGyver this thing together, something fierce right now. All right, so let me move this castle and all this stuff out the way so you guys can see what I'm doing. So the idea here, if we can get one wing done as an example. All right, so that's kind of where this needs to be. And I'm going to just go like that. And this needs to come here, so we'll position him here. And I need more hands, that's for sure. And let's try and weave him through, do our sewing. Which, you know what, I wonder if we can use string for this instead of, like if that would cook okay in the oven. I don't see why not. All right, guys, I think we have our first attachment there. Let me cut the excess off. All right, so we have kind of the first, you know, and you know, I don't think we have to put so many of them in, but that's, you know, maybe 3 per phalange, if you will. And then let me try and maybe position the other one. We'll do that nice curvature, kind of like that, and make it a little longer, because I always forget to make it longer to loop it properly. So let's cut it here. And what did I say? We're gonna try and put this guy, this finger will go here. My fingers are all getting bent, you know, my dragon fingers, but that's okay. Easy enough to fix. And let's do same thing here. I'm going to go in and loop him, because I don't think we need a ton of attachment points. And I'm going to use this guy to really crunch him, or crimp him, I guess is the professional term. We're crimping him. And then we're going to move, kind of make our shape like that, but first we're going to have to get him how we want. Then this hole. Gotta choose the right hole. Probably should have made this a tiny bit longer in typical fashion. So I think this was definitely the way to go, is starting at the end of the wing and working our way to the front of the wing. And one of the things I want to do too is make holes in this wing, just like in that dragon, the Game of Thrones ones. I think it looks so cool. Makes him look very battle torn. So now let's do one more, and I might be able to use this remnant piece right here, and you know, maybe he can go over here, and maybe it's these little pieces of armature that gets your finger way more than the netting. There. And get a nice curvature, somewhat symmetrical, if you will. All right. And let's feed him through about here. That's the toughest part, is deciding which hole to go into. Which little mesh hole. And feed him back. Actually did a much better job with this guy than the one previous to him. So maybe it's just a little practice. There. And so we have kind of a framework going on here. We have 1, 2, 3 supports, and I may, follow these kind of, wing folds with the clay. That might be kind of neat. And once this is done, you can actually begin to fold the wing any way you want. And the mesh is awesome. I'm loving it because it really helps give that shape. And now the fingers stay. Whereas before we're trying to position on the castle, and the hands are all like, he's got ADD dragon, So we can also see that now I have an overhang here, whereas before I had an underhang. Because I guess, it just got shifted in the process. But I'm really liking the way these tips here are exposed. It was kind of like Bob Ross would say, we don't make mistakes. We only have happy little surprises. And this ended up being, I think, a happy little surprise because we get these really cool, elegant tips that we can make like little horns and stuff on them. Little jagged edges. So we're going to continue the same. And we see that the next point is over here. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now, one of the cool things now that we have more space here, and maybe I'll back you guys out just a tiny hair because I'm running out of room. There we go. You'll notice, and I'll take this out of the way, that the distance between these two fingers is less than the distance between these. And the cool thing about that is that it allows you to make even more dramatic folds in between the fingers when you have varying phalange distances. So we're going to try and do the same thing here and create these little U's to try and anchor these things together. So I'm going to start back here. And we are going to U it up from maybe here, we'll start here. And I'm going to make it longer. And let's U it up because I don't want to add more turns to this because it'll start to bulk this up. So I think I'm going to start here and do something like that. And add more because I was about to make that same mistake and do something like that. Yeah. I say yeah, because I know what I'm doing. Yeah. First dragon armature, very exciting. I am super excited. So something like this. So I'll start here and we'll do a nice curl, or let's see, I did it like this the last time. We might do it opposite this time. And Kurt Benning's here, 99. Kurt Benning, 99. Awesome. Welcome. You are probably in the best part of our dragon armature. You can see that I have kind of a dragon-looking lizard thing made of tinfoil and wire. This is its skeleton that we're making for our wizard plasma ball lamp. And this skeleton is going to be scaling the castle and breathing fire on our poor wizard who is protecting our, plasma ball. And so we're going to make an actual clay model. It's going to be my very first clay model of this thing. It's going to have red glowing LED eyes, which of course we have to bake this whole thing in the oven. So we're going to hope that the LED survives. But I don't know, guys, what's your opinion? Because the baking, like they said, is only 275 degrees for 15 minutes per 1/4 inch of thickness. I don't see us going above 1/2 inch of thickness anywhere on this thing, you know, so 30 minutes at the most at 75 degrees. It might be okay. It might be okay. And I'm thinking normally I put the resistor right on one of the leads. But I think this time I'll put the resistor in the tower because that's the less we have in the Dragon and the more we have outside where we can replace, I think the better. So same thing, this is where I wrapped the other one. I don't want to wrap it right on that same knuckle to bulk, you know, that'll start to get kind of bulky. So I'm going to move this up right here and leave it a little bit longer, and we'll kind of do something like this. So I'll cut this up. And it's looking pretty good. I'm love the wire mesh did it. I was like, I don't know how, like secretly I was all like, we got this, you know, and like overtly I was like that, but secretly in my head I was like, how am I gonna manage these like wing fingers? They're all over the place, and by the time I start claying them, how are they even going to stay in place? This was the answer. I am so glad I saw this at the store, and I was like, you know what? This looks like a good idea. Let me grab this. Grab me some of this mesh, and it is a very thin mesh. You really don't have to worry about cutting your fingers on it, which is great. That's the first thing I thought, just like one of you guys, I think it was Careth or Program, was talking about finger. I was like, uh-oh, but it turns out it's not so bad. All right, that's got a nice curvature to it, and I'm gonna bend that. All right, and I think I'm gonna put one more up here, and I'm gonna use one of these tiny scraps that I have left over, and he can just, let me unbend these. These little fingers are getting a little bit bent from the force that I'm using. All right. Get these nicely, tightly crimped in our wing. And I'm not gonna need much of this. I'm just gonna put it through right there. There, so we're getting some, you know, we're pretty much sewing here with metal. Listen, if you're gonna sew, we're gonna sew with metal, haha. We just need some metal music to go with our metal sewing. So now, yeah, this mesh is pretty much on there, and it's going to allow us to bend the wings pretty reliably now. So this is great. And we can see how easy, look at how this is all mangled back here, all these wing fingers. So the mesh is a necessity. Either that or we can double wrap the way we did the rest of the wing. And I'm really liking the way I cut this short. And I'm beginning to think I probably should have laid this on top of the mesh and drawn out another copy of it. And I'm going to have to try and measure out. But what I might do is make the wing super flat and, you know, trace it that way. But yes, I should have had the forethought of doing it that way. But alas, you know, alas, we learn. So I'm going to do the same thing. And I think for this one, I'm going to start a little bit below. You know, here's where it ends. And I'm going to start this below. And so let's do a quick measure with a little bit of excess on this side for our, and a little bit of excess on this side. Seems like once you get the hang of it, it's going good. And I figured if we finish this wing, then I'm just going to wash, rinse, repeat on the other wing on my own, get it all ready for you guys. And we are going to start claying this thing next week. Oh yeah, that's the part where, you know, there could be a couple face plants. Could be. I should probably just be, you know, honest. There will be much face planting and a lot of oops moments and all that for a first time clay project, but that's how they go. And sometimes that's how you want them to go, because that's how you learn and you end up with even better products at the end. Like, if nothing eventful happens, then you're not really improving your skills, right? We want some happy little accidents. We had a bunch of that with our Frankenstein build, and that thing turned out awesome. I'm just gonna try and flip this over. Oh, once we get him all taped up, then the foil won't be so loosey-goosey. And there we go. Oh, pinched my finger. I crimped my finger too. I am one with the dragon now. Me and him are Borg. There, so we have looking pretty good. It's kind of tough to see against the, against the table, but you can kind of see the arches that we're creating, kind of like the skin folds of a real bat. I'm just like, I should have pulled up some bat pictures, and that's pretty much what I'm envisioning is some bats. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Cutting it a little bit long. So after doing this, like if you guys had to build something, and clay it up, what would be your animal of choice? Dragon? Would it be like a real animal? Like maybe it's a bunny rabbit or something like that. It can be a car, truck. It can be a building, Like what would you guys attempt, I guess, is your first clay model? Gumby? That counts too. I would definitely attempt a Gumby. Probably easiest clay model to attempt, instead of this dragon. We should have made like a giant evil Gumby that would attack our wizard. I don't know why I didn't think of that. I should have put that in the suggestion box under anonymous. Like, it'd be great if you could just make a Gumby, an evil Gumby, attaching attacking the wizard. But oh no, of course. I gotta Rachel it up, don't I? Let's make a very difficult creature. Oh, and I see that you've never done a clay model before. Yeah, so we're gonna attempt a dragon with a lot of, crazy wings in a very difficult position. Why not? That's how we roll up in here. So I got one more on this guy, and I'm going to kind of sew from here. I've never done metal sewing. This is actually pretty awesome. And we have been talking about our fall project. We're pretty much wrapped up the barbecue cart. There's only one more thing I want to show you guys with our condiment caddy, our robo condiment caddy. I fixed a lot of the tracking issues that it was having, so I'm just going to go through that real quick with you guys on Monday. And after that, well, listen, it's fall project time, and some of you guys have requested Halloween, so we have a request for a giant spider with flickering LED eyes, some kind of animatronic spider. So, I'm looking at that. So, and it doesn't have to be Halloween. It can be any project. So we're still collecting things in the suggestion box, but we got to be able to get it done kind of quick if it is Halloween. So I'd like to start that project, pretty pronto. So guys, we're on our last finger. Yes. And I'm going to make this guy kind of up here, and we're going to bend him kind of here. So, and this armature stuff is really inexpensive. That's the nice thing, about it. So if it's something you want to get started with, it's pretty easy. Start this guy up here. The poor, dragon gets a little bit mangled with this process, but we'll unmangle him here after we get the wings settled. Because after all, you can't be a productive dragon here without your wings, unless you're the Eastern dragon, which you're not being all mean and stuff if you are. All right, this one's fighting. It's like, I do not want to do metal sewing with you. I'm like, oh yeah? I'm pushing you in the hole. I do not care what you want. There we go. And it's just matching up the tips with the tips that I kind of cut out. which I didn't go too nuts on, so I'm kind of happy the way it turned out. And because this got positioned, you know, it got slid over, it's creating this short effect where we have, in essence, spikes coming out. And I'm thinking that ended up being quite fortuitous for us because it's going to look really neat. It's thin, so we can make some thin kind of, you know, horns. And for this one, we might only need, I don't have a scrap, but I think we might just need one here. And yes, look, it drew blood, and it was actually not the mesh. It was this that drew blood. So you know the project is going to be epic, because if the project doesn't draw blood, then it's just kind of like moseying itself about. But once a project draws blood, now you know it's business, and it's time to tango. And it wants to be epic, and you want it to be epic. So it's on now. Now it basically, you've both communicated you want the same thing, and we're both on the same page now. So awesome. Let me crimp you. You've been a little bit talkative with me, giving me some lip. So there's a remedy for that. It's called pliers to the face. There we go. And now let's feed you through. Nice. And there you have it, guys. Check out our wings. And I don't want to cut this excess off just yet, because I want to use this wing to basically have a template to cut out the rest of this mesh. I need to cut out a whole other wing, people. And so I'm just going to use this as a template. And of course, the other wing is not going to be open like this, but I am going to go ahead and do it as if it is, because that allows us more skin, in essence, to then fold up to make it look like the wing is very folded up, you know, with its skin. So I'm just going to, you know, leave this. Later on, as we clay, we can always trim up some, excess mesh, or, you know, we want to reposition this, that, or the otherwise. So it's lost a piece of its butt. It is just not wanting to have a big padonkadonk. And I'm trying to give it a padonkadonk, you know, because the tail is another, you would think that it would have like a lot of musculature, both in the arms, you know, a lot of arm day going on, but also in its gluteus maximus, because it's got that big tail that I'm going to imagine that dragons use as a rudder to help them turn quicker, help them flip quicker. And so you do need some gluteus maximus action to be able to, you know, get that tail moving. So all in all, I'm thinking he's looking pretty dragon-like. He's got that bigger chest. He's got a thin waist. And of course, I added less foil than I want his original, you know, his final size to be, because we need to add clay to this. And if I make him original size, you know, like the way we want with foil, once we add the clay, then he gets real chonky looking, you know, hit the buffet way too many times. So this is still his neck. The opening of his mouth is right here. So I only went a little bit with his neck. So he's going to have a nice, you know, kind of long neck. And we went ahead and flipped this because I thought it would be nice to put him on a hook as we, there goes his butt again. He just doesn't want a big butt. So we can put him on a hook as we clay him and get him positioned just right. And also we can cook him this way, I'm thinking. So that was kind of the idea there. And also this is where we're going to attach the flame coming out of his mouth at the wizard. So I left this kind of long, and we'll figure it out later. So all I'm going to do in preparation for next week's claymationing of all this is repeat what I did with the wing here on this wing. And so now we'll have a dragon with two wings. I'm going to add his butt back on, and I'm going to tape him up. So that way we can start adding clay. And if we mess up and I need to remove the clay, it is a lot easier to remove clay from a nice even taped surface than it is from this crinkly foil, because like the clay is going to get everywhere, and then we're going to have to start all over again. So that is the strategy. Those of you that have done clay bottling, whether beginner or advanced, if you guys have awesome tips. You can post them in the chat. You can, heck, message me on social media, but probably the best way is to hop on Discord, post pictures of what you mean. Start thinking about, since we're going to be claying, what do you want the dragon exterior to look like? Do you want a very horny head? Do you want horns going down the back all the way to the tail? Do you want the tail to have like a paddle, almost like a triceratops, horn, or the dinosaur that's got the spiky tail? The name is escaping me right now, but it almost looks like a club full of spikes. So we can do that as well. So post your dragon pictures up on Discord. And thanks so much, guys, for supporting the stream and coming here with your amazing commentary, chats, and suggestions, because that's how we went from like, ooh, let's see what happens if we run high voltage through a light bulb, to a wizard castle with a plasma ball up at the top and a dragon wizard battle going on. I blame you guys for this. So thanks so much for joining me tonight. I know we have the Labor Day weekend coming up and a lot of you guys are like getting busy and stuff with family. So I get that. And next week we are claying him up. And hopefully I can get his butt to stay on. Have a great night, guys. And thanks again for joining. See ya.